Y'all thought I was playing. 9:20 a.m. We up. Hope you're doing good. Micah back with another video, back here on this glorious Friday morning around 9:30 a.m. now. Yes, I had to swap out the cameras. I'm using the A6100 this time, so that way you guys can see definitely better quality as opposed to the smartphone camera quality, because we all know that smartphones just typically don't provide the greatest level of quality, but they are getting there. We are going to be talking about that bad boy right there, the PS5. Almost 3 years later, is it worth the investment? Is it worth buying? Is it worth purchasing? What are some of the pros and cons that I've experienced having it for over 3 years, or almost 3 years now? It did come out in 2020. I didn't get it till December 2021, so I had to wait a year to get it. But nonetheless, I got it. So let's get into it. I also dropped a poll on the YouTube channel asking you guys how you guys have been enjoying the vlogging style being added to the mix. Now, to also be clear, I'm definitely not getting rid of my top downs. When I have specific things I can talk about top down wise, I will definitely include those videos still, and or I'll bake them into these vlogs. So essentially, like how I'm talking now, kind of like how I did before, give you a nice little intro, and then you'll get the top down video inserted into the vlog, and then either that would end the vlog or I would continue talking depending on how long that part of the video was, because I do still kind of want to maintain a specific length when it comes to this, because you know, it just depends on, you know, what you got. You guys like long form content? Because of course I could easily bring that with the vlogging style, just packing a lot in. So go to the poll, vote on it, leave your comments. You can also leave your comments on this video if you want to. Let me know about whether or not you guys have been enjoying the vlog style, whether or not you guys are interested in the long form. I'm trying to get you guys' inputs, that way I kind of know where to go when it comes to the content and the videos, so that way you guys continue to support the channel. I'm trying to keep my light consistent in here, you know what I'm saying? But again, let's get to that PlayStation review. All right, as you guys can see just a little bit on the screen here, it's my TV in the living room. This is where I primarily game at. It's the PS5 in all of its beauty, and as you guys can see, it is black. So let's start there. Why does my PS5 look different than others? Well, that's because as much as I liked the alienistic look of the white plates, the original stock plates that PlayStation provides, D-brand caught my attention. I had to grab them dark plates 2.0, and it gave it even more of a slim, sleeker, alienistic vibe. And so that's why I went with their dark plates over Sony's stock plates. And even though Sony's came out with other colors that I would like to get, D-brand also has other colors that I would like to get, like their arachnid plates or whatever. I forgot the name of it. The black and red ones I would love to get and put on here, and or even just put the strip on here in the middle. I did elect to get blue strips to put over my LEDs, so that way instead of it pulsing white, it pulses black, or blue, I'm sorry, it pulses blue. And so those were the very early accessories that I actually ended up getting and obtaining for my PS5. The other thing I got is the PlayStation camera right here. I don't know if you guys can see it that well, and it's kind of stuck. Right here is the PS5, the PS camera. 1080p. You know, if you're gonna do some streaming with it, the main reason why I had got that was also because I was gonna do a lot of streaming with the PS5, which I did on a whole nother channel, my gaming channel that I have not uploaded on in forever. It's like gaming and pop culture. I haven't done anything there in a while, and that's kind of why I'm uploading this here as opposed to over there, because I still don't know if I really want to talk about games and pop culture like that, just because a lot of pop culture stuff has not been the greatest to even try to be entertained by, and so I've just kind of left my opinion out of it. But there have been a lot of games I started playing, so I've been constantly debating with myself whether or not to drop those opinion pieces again. But I was doing a lot of Marvel's Avengers streaming and gaming, building armor sets and gear sets over there on the channel, and I was doing a lot of that with the camera, so that's why I got the camera. But because I don't use it or stream anymore because Marvel's Avengers effectively died, I wondered, do I still need it? Plus, with the way I run my internet now, which is through T-Mobile as opposed to a typical ISP, my throughput isn't going to be as high on my PlayStation 5 anymore. So streaming is going to be very difficult. And so for those reasons, I probably just won't use my camera anymore. I may even just completely unplug it and just kind of stash it in here for now, because I don't use it, and then it'll kind of give a new kind of more fresh look to the PlayStation 5, not having the camera up there on the top. I bought the bundle back in December 2021. That was the only way most people could get a PlayStation 5 the first year and a half was through bundles. And so I had to pay 955 smackaroonies to get my PS5, which came with 3 games. I think it came with Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart. It came with Spider-Man, Miles Morales, and I feel like it came with another game, but I really can't remember off the top of my head. I'd have to search my PlayStation database to see if I have, see if I can remember that third game, or maybe it was just 2. I can't remember. But that's the only way you were going to be able to get the PS5 back in 2021. And so I finally got it. And funny enough, it took me about 2 hours to play it because I was kind of in awe that I had finally got the PS5. So I was kind of looking at it, looking at the box, admiring the box, figuring out how I really wanted to set it up, and really excited to play. And so I did. I finally jumped into the game and started playing, and I got it. How has it been? That was a journey to the PS5. And I will tell you that the game, especially early on, were definitely more PS4 focused still. Rift Apart was one of the very few games. I did play Returnal in the very beginning as well. Returnal was very fun. It was one of the other games. There were very few PS5 exclusive games for the PS5. A lot of games were PS4 with a PS5 version or like a PS5 upscale, but not a native PS5 or exclusively PS5. Rift Apart was exclusive PS5 and Returnal was exclusively PS5, and you got to get the sense of how PS5 was really going to be when you played those 2 games specifically, because they incorporated the new features you get with the PS5 with like adaptive triggers and which improves your feedback, your controller feedback, your or haptic feedback, if you will. In the words of Gamer, the haptics. You get SSD power with the with the PS5, right? So you have the availability of a SSD, which I didn't have. I didn't get to do that with the PS5 with the SSD part yet. So the Rift Apart and Returnal, you got to really feel the adaptive triggers, the haptic feedback, just no loading times. And that was one of the biggest things of Ratchet and Clank was you were world switching, like you were jumping in between like portals through different aspects of the world that you were on, and you got to see it happen in snap real time and no load screens. That was the most beautiful thing, was like no load screens, and still for the most part there isn't really a lot of load screens, and we'll get to that soon. But those early games really got to give you the sense of what gaming on PS5 was going to be like. You got to see the true difference between quality mode and performance mode, because the PS5 has more power to run 60 frames per second on a consistent basis, but not at 4K. And that's one of the things that I think we were expecting, considering the box has 8K on it. So it's like, if the original PS5 has the ability to run 8K, should it not be able to run 4K 60 at minimum, or with relative ease if this thing can output 8K quality? And so 8K seemed like it was definitely just a marketing ploy, because I don't think there's even any 8K games out yet. And very few people probably have 8K TVs to even experience 8K gaming. So it's like, we just want y'all to really focus on 4K and get that down right, but 4K 60, please, or even like 4K 40, like, it would be great. But in order to achieve some of those things, you have to have features that comes later with the PS5, which we'll again get into in a little bit. So for me, gaming with those few games definitely opened your eyes. Miles Morales was much more smooth and sleek, much more fluid. I mean, all those words almost sound the exact same, but they mean different things when you're playing video games. And like, between Spider-Man 2018 and Miles Morales, this thing was doing with Miles Morales. And then they gave you the PS5 remastered version, or my bad, they gave you Spider-Man remastered, the PS5 version, with Miles Morales. I think you got that day one. I think that's the version of Miles Morales I had, because there's two. You have like the regular edition and like the Ultimate Edition, Spider-Man Miles Morales, and Ultimate Edition comes with the PS5 remastered version of Spider-Man 2018. Also, much better to play on PS5. There's just things it was just different finally having a PS5 and playing games. Going back and playing PS4 games was different as well, because you noticed a lot of things improved playing those PS4 games. And if those PS4 games also received updates to run on PS5, oh boy, a lot of them older PS4 games kind of brought like a 4K 60-ish level to it, where it just improved graphical performance, improved the performance modes, and improved frame rates. Oh, Death Stranding had a director's cut, which was a PS5 version of Death Stranding that came out on PS4. And if you wanted to go slight widescreen, there was an option in Death Stranding where you go slight widescreen, but you would get 4K 60, and it was consistent. I didn't finish playing director's cut because I got stuck. I think I lost a package, and it won't let you move on, and I couldn't restart. It was a mess. So I just watched the movie on YouTube to finish Death Stranding. But it just goes to show you how nice this PS5 really is. And I would say I have thoroughly been enjoying my PS5 experience. Now, for the cons, essentially, those are cons, pros. The first con was out of the box. You only get like 817 gigabytes, which is crazy because games are definitely bigger on the PS5, especially like bigger, more popular games. I don't play Call of Duty, but Call of Duty is a huge one. Star Wars Jedi Survivor is a huge game, just to name a couple. What else? I think God of War was massive. Let's see. I think Final Fantasy was somewhat massive. Yeah, I think Final Fantasy 7 Remake was massive. I believe Final Fantasy 16 is somewhat massive. Like games are reaching 70, 80, 90, 100 gigs. So imagine having only 800 gigs to play with. That's like 6-7 games. 8, maybe 10 at most, but you're not getting a lot of games downloaded, which is why the availability of being able to install an SSD is so amazing. But then also, like, you gotta go pay for one of them, and that's why I didn't have one. I couldn't get one. I also didn't prioritize it because I very well could have gotten one earlier on if I was really paying attention to it. But at the time, you can consider in the early life of PlayStation, there wasn't that many like true PS5 games. And then like you could kind of hang around with having about 10 to 15 games before needing the space to download everything that you wanted on your PS5. And so for me, the PS5 finally, although it jumped that hurdle, that is a hurdle you have to get over, is storage wise. You will have to invest in the SSD if you want to get the most out of your games or have the most downloaded, so you don't always have to download and delete that process. And so I think this thing can take as many storage gigabytes as possible. I think I've seen as high as 8 terabytes. Somebody has like 8 terabytes, or you could definitely do 4 terabyte SSDs. They just cost a lot of money, depending on what brand you buy. So SSDs, storage is one of the first cons. I would say it's a pro and a con having only one USB-C and one USB-A. On the front, on the back, you get one or two additional USB-A. I think that 3.0 or 3.1 USB speeds. I would like to see two USB-C slots on the front. I think that's more appropriate, especially if maybe you have two people that want a game and play wired. Having two USB-C ports makes more sense, considering the controller has USB-C. So if you guys can see there, the controller has USB-C. This is my favorite controller to use. I need to get that Midnight Black. This is my favorite controller to get to use. This is a controller I believe it came with, or I had the option to get it with the bundle as well, because it comes with one controller and you get the option to buy an option for another controller, I believe. I think that's how that worked, and that's how I got this controller to come alongside my PS5. So that was another bittersweet pro when it came to buying the bundle for the PS5 was controllers. And I have two more controllers and a charging base, and then I forgot to also tell you guys it came with a charging base, but I immediately swapped that charge base out for PlayStation's charge base because it looked just like the controller and like the PS5 itself. So I just wanted everything to look the same. Bought this on Amazon a while ago. It's a PlayStation controller holder, which just happens to still hold the DualSense controller. That's right, the DualSense controller, not DualShock 5 or nothing like that. DualSense, and that's because of the haptic feedback and the adaptive triggers. Those triggers simply provide tension when you're trying to press on them, when you're using different, aspects of, if not weaponry, like bow and arrows, or if you happen to be some gunplay takes place, and depending on what kind you have, you might feel some tension trying to pull on the trigger or pull all the way down on the trigger. So again, all that stuff is fun, but it's a con, because not a lot of games still really take advantage of the controller aspects. And I think we've always seen that with PlayStation over the course of time. They always introduce new features, like, what was it, PS4 introduced the touchpad. This does still have a touchpad, but games rarely make use of the touchpad's ability to be swiped on and controlled from that perspective, or like even with the axes that you had with the DualShock controllers, and I think you still have it here. Games developers do not take advantage of that. So market employees for all of that type of stuff, but you just don't really get to feel those features because developers don't take the time to really develop games with the controller in mind from that perspective. Yes, you may get more adaptive triggers, you may get more feedback, but one of the other feedback, or the advanced haptic feedback, was like whether or not you were on different types, like surfaces. So like if you're on ice versus sand versus water versus ground, the controller is supposed to interpret those differences in texture. You get to notice it with Astrobot, PlayStation's kind of mascot game. The Astrobot, Astro's Playroom, you get to experience everything about the controller, and that's why that's hands down like one of people's top 5, top 10 games on PS5 to this day is because of Astrobot and PlayStation really showing us the features that you get with the DualSense controller that PS5 can translate to us or transmit to us. But a lot of games just don't really take advantage of the controller for the PS5. And that's something I hope to change. I hope I see change here soon. So time goes on. They release a DualSense Edge controller, which is like their pro controller, where you can change out aspects of like your sticks, your adaptive triggers. I think you can add additional triggers or buttons, so that way you can get additional action with games without having to always activate certain things. So, oh, okay, I see what I did. So that was cool, but that controller costs like $200. That's why I don't have one yet, because gaming is an expensive hobby. The other thing that they came out with at launch was like the Pulse headset. I wanted them. I haven't gotten it yet. It looked very alienistic as well. And I think they even have like a PlayStation 5 remote control and all that. But then later they came out with the Pulse Elite headset, which I hear is very, very solid. I think the Pulse headset is also very solid. I have an older pair of SteelSeries. I have a SteelSeries headset for my PS5 that I rarely use. But it is a good headset, but I definitely want those Pulse Elites. And I would like the DualSense Edge controller because I do consider myself semi-pro. Not that I play pro per se, but I'm a heavy gamer when I get into it. And so having a controller that I can fit to my needs with maybe higher stems for my sticks, or different types of trigger buttons that I can swap out, because you can swap out the tip of the triggers to make it easier to access, or depending on how your hands are made up and all that type of stuff. I would like that. So those are some accessories that came out later. I haven't got them yet, but I probably would showcase them on the channel when I do get them for the PS5 at some point. What's the next con I could think of, or takeaway as opposed to a plus? Well, games have only gotten bigger, and games have only gotten slightly more broken, it feels like, as time has went on. And that might be something in general, but it's definitely seeming like developers are dropping games more unstable, and as a result you get a lot of crashing when it comes to certain games on the PS5. And I think the biggest game was Jedi Survivor that I could think of that was broke. And now Jedi Fallen Order was also broke, so Respawn just needs to fix that. But Jedi Survivor is a perfect game of a game that just did not want to work properly in general, and it showcases some of the struggles we still have with the PS5 and frame rates. So a lot of game crashing with Jedi Survivor, but also the inconsistencies on both performance mode and quality mode. That was a game I played on both modes. I played Guardians of the Galaxy on PS5 on both modes. Guardians of the Galaxy from, I think it was Crystal Dynamics or Montreal, whatever, Square Enix, the game that should get a sequel but was like hated. I don't know if it was hated on, but that game is super solid. Guardians of the Galaxy was beautiful on both performance mode and quality mode. Jedi Survivor, however, I just went back and played it on quality mode, and now I took advantage of a lot of their little challenging perks that they added to the game. And I always play on Jedi Grandmaster anyway, but those things don't necessarily affect the fact that even if because you're gonna die, you're gonna have to respawn several times in that game, and it seems like it can't handle the respawn aspect of it, because there was moments where it would lag in between respawns, and that was not cool at all. And then it crashed on me still, like even after all these updates they've dropped for Jedi Survivor, because that game's been out for like over a year now. That game was still giving me problems when it came to frame rates or like weird bugs, and that I don't like. I don't like that. We're paying some decent money. Now, I'm also kind of sort of under the frame of mind that like we see a lot of developers having to, unfortunately fire and furlough and lay off employees, and that's because these games are expensive to make, and they're still not charging us probably the more appropriate price to handle these games. Right now, you could argue maybe some of the budgets should fall for these games, but these games probably should cost more than $70. That being said, we're still having to pay that. I want my game to work fine. And so that's one of the things that Jedi Survivor did not do that well with. God of War Ragnarok did a decent job with. I didn't have any problems with that game, to tell you the truth. That game was immaculate on performance mode. I'm tempted to go back to play on quality mode. The Spider-Man games, especially Miles Morales had like 4 different modes. You had like performance, ray trace mode. You had performance mode, and the difference between there would be like 60 frames per second with ray tracing, but the quality would be like 1080p. But if you did like regular performance mode, then it would be quad HD or 1440p, 60 frames per second. Then they had quality mode and quality mode ray tracing, and I don't quite know the difference between those because quality mode should have already came with ray tracing, I think. So it was something like that. But Spider-Man had a ton of different modes. So it's kind of cool. You can have the modes that you want to play in, but I definitely want to see more consistency with both anyway, especially with the fidelity mode or quality mode running 30 frames per second. It should run that consistently with no problem. And that's the problem that we still have almost 3 years later, is that games cannot drop with a consistent 30 frames per second, and we still don't have a 4K 60. Even with the PS5 Slim coming out, we probably knew that wasn't going to be able to output similarly. But the PS5 Slim is also out, which is nice, but that's not a performance boost per se. That's just trying to slim down the beast that is this PS5. And now going into 2024, we're probably 6 months away or so from the PS5 Pro. And the PS5 Pro also is not necessarily targeting 4K 60. So 4K 60 clearly sounds like it's something difficult for developers to achieve. And we know with console gaming, I think they kind of sort of take a loss on the hardware, or they really don't make a lot of money from the hardware because they want to make it on the back end with the software, such as the games and the services they provide. So with that being said, if you know you're going to take a loss when it comes from that, from that perspective, then put what we need in here for the 4K 60. You know what I mean? Because we're going to go buy the machine. We only got to buy this one time. We don't have to interchange parts unless you have a low terabyte or gigabyte, not terabyte. Terabyte, yeah. If you have a low terabyte or low gigabyte SSD, that's the only thing you would probably swap out if you have one. And that's about it. And if you break a controller, you have to buy a new controller. But in terms of this, unless this fries or whatever, give us what we need to run our games properly. That's all I'm asking. That's all I think we all asking as gamers. And so for my PS5 review, almost 3 years later, is it worth the money? It definitely is, because those takeaways, those cons, do not outweigh the pros that you receive with this game and kind of future-proofing your gaming. Because even when we finally jump between PS5 and PS6, it's not going to be that substantially different, other than probably 4K 60. Like, that's probably it. Maybe additional technologies like ray tracing being properly embedded in both performance and quality / fidelity mode at 4K 60. So we know computer gaming wise, or PC gaming, you got 120, 240, 365 or some frames per second. You got crazy numbers, 400 frames per second. Crazy numbers when it comes to gaming. Even if those dip, you won't even notice it because it's still that smooth, that fluid, that responsive. And so we want to at least be able to achieve 60 frames per second. Like, phones at minimum usually run 60 hertz and can run 60 frames per second. So come on, we got phones that got 120 hertz, 120 frames per second gaming on a phone. Give us 4K 60 on the PS5. That's all we asking for. So while I was talking, maybe I've showed you guys what I got going on my screen here. In terms of some of the games that I have downloaded, I have like 40 games downloaded because I finally was able to get a SSD as in midlife of having this PS5. But I have beautiful games, from sports games to some anime games to fighting games that I like playing. And I finally got back into gaming and been able to start clearing out my backlog, because games can build up, especially when they're dropping at a high rate. So that is my PS5 review. Almost 3 years later, I can definitely recommend you getting it. You can also even find them a little cheaper now. You don't have to buy one at full $500. You can find them at $450, $400. You can get a PS5 Slim. You can find yourself a PS5 because they are available now. They weren't available like that in the very beginning, 2020 through 2022, like the first few months of 2022. I want to say around February, March, April. 2022, you was not going to find a PS5 like that. You could even maybe argue into the later years of later months of 2022. It was hard to find these. I don't think these went like full supreme available until like 2023. So time flies by the way. But that is what I had to say about the PS5. Get yourself one if you can. I got a couple friends I know out there that are debating to get one. Just buy one. You're not going to regret it. It's still a 4K DVD player as well. Although I've had some issues with Redbox, but you can play 4K DVDs. It's a UHD player, so you don't have no problems. It's an entertainment center as well, because you can switch from games to media in here and actually stream your services from your box if you wanted to. It's still a great entertainment piece to have, especially how it looks. Like, you might not think it would blend in at first, but trust me, it does. And to have something that utilizes all of that in one package, get yourself a PS5. I'll leave the links down in the description box below if you guys are looking for one. If they're available on Amazon, I'll definitely drop the links down there for you. But yeah, let me know what you guys' thoughts. Do you guys have a PS5? Do you guys game? Do you guys have Xbox? I do. I would like to get an Xbox. I wouldn't mind getting the all digital version because I primarily would probably play Game Pass. And that's the other con I forgot to kind of talk about real quick. When you buy collector's editions and ultimate editions and all that type of stuff, they don't come with physical games anymore. I bought the physical PS5 thinking that I would miss out on the ultimate editions because that makes sense for them to provide the disc and or provide a code for the game. You're buying the ultimate edition, so why not give you both versions? Or at minimum the physical edition. But I can also understand why like people who bought the digital edition PS5, they might end up missing out if they don't get you know what I'm saying? They might miss out on the game. They can't buy the collector's edition because they don't have a physical disc. And so maybe they would sell two different versions of the collector's disc, the collector's edition, a digital version and a physical, but they just squashed all that. And they're selling one version and it's basically for everybody, but technically for digital because you'll get a steelbook, but you won't get a physical disc. And so that's not cool. Even if the disc couldn't play the game, at least put a disc in the steelbook case. And so that is unfortunately what you miss out on with the PS5. You miss out on physical hardware from that perspective. So I could have actually saved money and got a digital edition because I have like 7-8 games physical disc wise, but I very much so could have just got them digital. It doesn't matter to me about physical versus digital as much right now. I know there's been moments where like Sony and or Xbox may have messed up with the licensing or a glitch happened, people lost access to the game. So I can understand that kind of stuff happening from time to time, but that I'm not as worried about as the fact that I could have just saved myself money on which version I could have bought. And I would have been happy with the digital edition. I really would have. But having a physical still secures me having something in the living room just in case I have DVDs I want to watch and play. And if I can go to GameStop and get a game cheaper through the physical disc as opposed to the digital, I can just run it to GameStop, get some games. Shout out to GameStop. They're still living out here. They're barely surviving, but they're still out here. So go show your GameStop some love as well. But those are my thoughts. Let me know down your thoughts in the description box, or in the comment section below. But again, as always, if you guys haven't already, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, turn on notification bell so for you every my videos. So you and I can sit back, relax, see what's cracking. Your man Micah sign out to the next video. Wait for